Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another of my little morning audios that I make. I like to make these audios because it's a pleasant time of the day to do so. I want to make you aware that our lives, as we currently know them, have an origin, and that origin is not a heavenly origin. What we think of as the ego life, the life of highs and lows and pleasure and pain and suffering and misery and excitement and anger and rage and lust and dreaming away and being disappointed and being hurt and being grieved and struggling and striving and trying and failing and regretting. Did you notice, of all of those adjectives that I stated, or verbs, did you notice that most of them are negative? And even the ones that are positive, like, excitement and pleasure, even those, you know very well, those are short-lived, and the excitement leads to a letdown. And pleasure is short-lived and often leads to pain, doesn't it? So if you look at it, as I have just stated it, it's a life of being teased, tempted, challenged, prodded, goaded, stimulated from the outside. Now, these outside stimulations have a purpose, and their purpose is their own survival. Their purpose is their own benefit, what they think of as their benefit. And somehow they live off of your reactions, don't they? Your responses. And so you have to see that you're not living your own life if all you're doing is reacting to these teases and challenges on the outside. You feel you have a life, but all it is just emotions and pleasures and pains, and then the remnants or the residuals of those pleasures and pains and emotions, which is what? Letdown, frustration, headache, high blood pressure, tummy ache, disappointment, and so on and so forth. Now, the good news is that you have a latent awareness, a consciousness. There's something in you. There's something in all of us. It doesn't matter whether you're living in Mongolia or Ukraine or Venezuela or Hawaii or Southern California, it doesn't matter. There's something in you that yearns for something better, something wonderful and sweet and good, some sort of something that you, when you were a child, you knew there was something good and whole and sweet, and you knew that life was an adventure and there could be something great for you. You wanted to be a prince or a princess, a noble, brave man or a gracious lady or a noble, brave lady. You wanted something good, and you sensed that there was a good, and you read about it in the storybooks, and you dreamed of it. And then as you got older, you began to think back. As you got into your 30s and 40s and 50s, 60s, you began to think back to earlier times, and you thought, boy, it was better then. Life was sweeter, and there was less to worry about. And I was more free and more spontaneous, and we didn't have a lot, but it was good. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Well, it's because in those earlier times, when you were young, and when you didn't have a lot, but you were spontaneous and you felt free and you had hope, you were closer to the kingdom of God. As a matter of fact, when you were a little tiny child, you were even closer yet. And so you must come to the inescapable conclusion that the life of just reacting to the outside and experiencing pleasure and pain and emotions and disappointments and resentments and so on, that's not any life at all. It's a substitute for the real thing. And the real thing, you've always known that there is a real thing. There is a real life of nobility, of courage, of graciousness, of adventure, of usefulness. There is such a life. And you have to find it. and you were closer to it when you were a little kid, and you have to come to the unmistakable conclusion that it was, when you were a young person, it was right there. It was right there. It was almost within your grasp. You were close to it. So now you must find it. You must find it. So what has happened is, in your reactions to the outside, and especially because of the reaction of resentment. That's right, resentment. See, resentment is also a reaction. It's a little bit of hatred, and then the resentment leads to anger and impatience. And then you redouble your efforts to have the world make good. See, they took from you. See, what they took from you, you think they took your stuff, you think they took your years, they were ungrateful, you think all of that stuff. But no, that's not what they took from you. You think maybe they tried to take your self-respect and so on. But that's not what they took from you. What they really took from you was your connection with your inner ground of good, your connection with God, with the kingdom of heaven, with what you know in your heart. They separated you from that. And how do they do it? With all their little tricks. Now you must realize that resenting them is just another response that separates you even more from the inner good. What you must realize is they too had lost it. What was done to you was done to them. Long ago they lost it. Your mom lost it. Your dad lost it. The kids at school lost it. Everyone lost it. The professors lost it. The doctors lost it. The teachers lost it. They all lost it. The bosses lost it. And they were living the substitute life also. And so they couldn't give you love. See, love is what you really need. And what would love be? Love would be some sort of a correction from the false life. See, your life now is you're out of control. You're out of control, reacting, resenting, hating, blaming, judging. And now you're fixated to people on the outside, aren't you? You're fixated to the kind of men that you hate, the kind of women that irritate you, the kind of bosses that you don't like, the kind of people who do rude things. You're fixated. See? And so what you must do now is defixate. You must re-find what you lost. And it's very, very simple. It's very simple. You go into your room and close the door and sit quietly. Get the little meditation that I made, the little 8-minute meditation. It's free. Or the 4-part one, I've also made it free. And learn to be still and to separate from your rabid thoughts and your emotions. Just learn to watch them and be closer to the kingdom of heaven, which is right there in the now present. And learn to get in touch with what you know in your heart, what you were once close to when you were a little child. Refine that and live from that, instead of living from tease. See, now your whole life revolves around challenges and teases and temptations and stimulations from the outside. You need them to take you away from what? From awareness that you're not living your own life, awareness of the guilt of a life not well led. It takes you away from them, and then when you get involved with them, then you spent your energy. You eat too much, you drink too much, you study too much, you watch too much television, you go overboard, and then what? Then you have pain, and you feel drained and tired, and then what? Then you resent it. See? So you have to stand back from that. Get off of that merry-go-round of that endless cycle of pleasure and pain and frustration and resentment and so on. And now get in touch with what you know in your heart, which is true and which is good and which is pure, and trust in it. Be close to it and learn to follow it. And it will guide you to safety and to happiness, and it will restore you and restore your life, give you your life back.